that don't want what we know out there.
How a person can go from really almost nothing to becoming a millionaire by owning rental properties.
He would always buy these flip houses, and I just remember thinking, this guy is crazy. Why would he buy that house?
In the past decade, there's been a huge surge in the peer-to-peer short-term rental market.
Become an insider. So you have to know the rules before you get in the game.
Every second counts. So make every second count.
Welcome to the Real Estate Jam. Whether you're just beginning or the best of the best, we're glad you're here. We will share successes, failures, and strategies for the action-taking real estate investor. And now to your hosts, JD and Melissa.
Hi guys, welcome to Real Estate Jam Podcast. I'm JD with my wonderful and lovely co-host, Melissa.
Thank you, JD.
How you doing today?
Great. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. I love to hear it. Hey, we got an awesome show for you guys today. We have a real estate investor since 1994, author of Real Estate Investing for Beginners, a guy that lives in a cabin, apparently. We have Brian S. Penn. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I can't wait to deep dive into some of your thoughts, strategies, and tactics and share all your knowledge with our audience.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for having me on. This is an honor for me, and I'm just so glad to be able to talk to you and share some of my experience over the last few years. Well, more than a few now. I'm getting a little long in the tooth, so I'm going to write this down before I die.
Well, awesome. I love that. Brian, usually, for our audience members who might not know who you are, can you kind of give us a little bit of a rundown of your background, how you got started, and where you're at now?
Okay, 1994, I was finishing up a PhD in igneous petrology, geology. And if you don't know those terms, that actually explains a lot of why I couldn't really get a big job with that. And so, and I was doing a postdoc, and I didn't want to get into teaching or anything like that. So I just went ahead and I got a flyer that said, learn to buy and sell property through probate. And so I took the last $5,000 I had at that point and flew down to somewhere in Arizona, Phoenix, although we thought it was Fiji. It's in Phoenix, and spent a week or a weekend with I think 50 other people who were very much interested in real estate too. They apparently were. And so went through the course, came home, and started buying and made up the money in like the first two deals. And then I ended up buying a house out of that, which I ended up selling a few years later for double the money. And I reinvested that in other things. What I thought was really interesting was they gave us a list of people that went to the course. And so after a year, I called every single one of those people. So I want to say, am I the only one? And I was the only one that had actually done anything. I was very disappointed. And part of it was you actually have to call up dead people's relatives and ask them if they have property for sale. It's a very hard thing to do because, I only got one call like that where they said, hey, they're just dead. Why are you calling me? You're a horrible person. And I know I'm a horrible person, so it didn't really bother me. And so what I ended up doing, but I found that a lot of people don't, and you go to seminars and stuff like that. So I think what it was is people just weren't aware of what was involved. They just kind of jumped into that. So then from there, I moved from Colorado to Texas, and they have different laws for probate. So probate was out at that point. And so I happened to see Carlton Sheets, no money down. And so I plunked down the $100 and I started doing that. And I was buying single family homes, no money down. And that worked very well. And so I acquired a number of properties. I was in El Paso, Texas at that point. I was doing this part-time. I've seen a lot of folks that just dive straight in their whole career and everything like that. And I've watched people do that. And that can work very well for some people. I know you had Brent Bowers on several months ago. He did that. He's excellent. I talked to him the other day, and he's just great guns and everything like that. But there are other people like myself that are, a little hesitant. And so we kind of do this on the side with the idea that we'll be using it in the future. And that's really what happened with me is I ended up working for a number of years, and things happen, and then you you find that you've accumulated enough properties to say, why am I working for someone else now? Yeah. And so that's kind of, so I went through the 2000s and I was buying properties, and then I got into the subprime meltdown after that all happened. And that was, people go, oh, it's a horrible time. I picked up so many properties at that point. I mean, people just gave me their properties. I had so many people there said, I said, what do you do? Well, why don't you just take it over? I'm like, okay, I will do that. And so, and we're coming into that time again now. And what I took advantage of, or the technique I used at that point, was a subject to. And there are a couple people that have real good courses on subject to. One of them is kind of my mentor here in Colorado, is Bill Bronchek. Jeff Watson also has a course in subject to, and they're both very good. But I was at a meeting last night, and I said, hey, everybody I talked to, I said, we're right on the cusp. It's going to be a few months down the line, but people they're going to have these great houses. They're going to have these great mortgages, but they're going to be totally underwater. And I don't really care how much the house costs. I care whether I can take the payment they got, take over their payment, and then rent it out for more than I'm paying. Right. And everything else will settle down after that. And that's kind of my idea, because I've done a lot of stuff. I did the probate, I've done subject, I've done the, couple of different things, pre-foreclosures, I've done short sales, I've done all sorts of things. And I kind of, you kind of find your place. And I found my place really dealing with single family homes. Although sometimes I think I should have gotten all quads, a couple of quads. Hindsight is 20/20, and so. But after like the subprime meltdown, that period of time, it was a madhouse here in Colorado Springs. I go to the meetings, and every week there was like 5 or 10 new people, or every month, because we are actually bi-monthly when Brent was running the meetings. There'd be like 5 or 10 people. I'm new to Colorado Springs and I'm going to make money here. I'm like, this is crazy. Everything was, they were jacking the prices up on everything. And all of the owners knew this. They knew, I can get top dollar for my house. I'm not gonna sell it or anything like that. And so I just kind of sat back and watched the value of the properties I had go up. And so that was nice. And but I was just, I don't want to get in a bidding fight. It's like going to Disneyland. I've never been to Disneyland, but I'll say this because you guys are in Florida, or Disney World. Sorry about that. Disney World. You don't go when everybody's in line. You go when there's nobody in line. And so when there's a lot of competition, you just adapt, improvise, and move on to something else. And so as I saw that, and then I got involved, that's why I got involved with the land stuff with Brent. I do a bunch of vacant land now too. It's like, well, nobody's really in vacant land. And so I hooked up with Brent and, went through his educational process, and that picked up too. So, but it's all changing again. This whole, with the interest rates doubling and tripling at this point, and people are going to get stuck in houses that they can't get rid of because interest rates are too high. They cost too much. And so you should be able to this point. And that's why I revisited the subject too. I did it for a bunch of years. It's changed slightly. Mm-hmm. And so I went back and, re-educated myself, because stuff changes over time. And that's the direction I've gone in. So I'm kind of straddling right now between, I'm getting ready to do subject twos. I'm still, like yesterday, I sent out several hundred letters for land, making land offers and stuff. So just keep the process going. That's the thing is, and just stay with it. That's the biggest thing that I would say to people is you don't have to make it all like Brent did, which is he dumped his whole life into that. But most of us have jobs and families and things like that, and we're not as secure and willing to just take a dive off the end of the deep board. We want to keep one foot on land where we're doing it and acquiring the wealth and everything we need, so that you can be kind of like me now, where I don't have to work for somebody else.
Yeah, I think that's great. Now you had a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, but first I'll say with the subject to, what I see is every once in a while somebody will put a Facebook ad out, or there'll be a video talking about, hey, do subject to, right? And so everybody will try to run subject to, and that's all they're looking for. And I think it's really important, especially for new investors, to realize, like what you mentioned, is that you don't care about what the price of the house is. If the subject to, it has to cash flow. And what I see a lot of newer investors doing is they get one tool, they learn how to do subject to, and they try to fix every single problem with that, instead of saying, well, hey, that's a nail, I should hit it with a hammer, but that's a screw, I should use a screwdriver. And I think it's important, subject to is a great strategy, but it's just one tool in your toolbox, just like any other type of creative finance or traditional finance or hard money loans. All of these things are different for each toolbox. And the trick as the young investor, the new investor, is being able to recognize what type of problem and which tool from the toolbox fixes that problem for the seller. And so I think, the more tools you have, the more solutions you can provide. That's kind of how we run our business. Is we take the property and the situation, and then see, out of my knowledge, Melissa's knowledge, our network's knowledge, which solution gets the homeowner the best option for them. And also, we're a business and we operate for profit, so it needs to work for us too. But being able to identify and going to some of these courses and choosing to go with these strategies are great, as long as you can understand, that if the mortgage is $2,500 a month plus taxes and insurance, but it only rents for $800, that's probably not a good subject to deal, unless you have an equity spread that's huge that you can recapture right away. So, one of the other things that you had mentioned that I wanted to comment about is you were at your local meetup, and you were telling people that you think the market's going to change. Can we deep dive into that a little bit? What are you seeing? What's making you, where are you getting your crystal ball?
Do you remember what happened in China with Evergrande last year? Have you ever heard of Evergrande?
I haven't, no.
Okay, Evergrande. See, the CCP set it up so that the Chinese people can't invest in anything, but they said, okay, real estate. And so what they did, and what Evergrande was, they were the largest property developer in China. And they were the most in debt to, I think, $300 billion. And so they collapsed. And so the process really started. Remember the meltdown of the subprime meltdown, where we had to recover from that. The losses were on the order of $6 billion. And that really sunk the world market to a great extent. Now, what happened in China with the meltdown of their property developers, and it was like the top 30 property developers went under, to the tune of 60 billion or trillion. It could be 60 trillion. I think it's 60 trillion. I think ours was 6 trillion. Not billion was too small a number. Sorry. I forgot. I meant to exaggerate, but I thought, well, it's actually trillion. And so it's 60 trillion. So that's 25%. Real estate investing in China is 25% of their GDP. And so what happens in a country like China spreads around the world. I mean, our subprime meltdown spread around the world to a global recession. China's is going to spread around the world too. So that's really what got me going in this whole thing of seeing what's going to happen in the future. And it's the world markets are driving so much of this. And so when you see the collapse of such a huge, the ghost cities they have, where they'd make people pay for their house up front or their apartment up front. And all you saw was a cement frame up in a building. And there's these huge towns, empty towns, ghost towns in China. And that's affecting the world market. That will affect the world market. And they're in big recession now. They have all their COVID stuff has made them crazy. And so that type of thing is going to affect everyone. And then you saw, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, when you're looking at that too, they were on such a big building run, and then when those businesses went under, then the demand for all of those materials that had been built up over the course of a few years had dropped significantly, tanking the prices across the world market. or we're also looking at now that their economy is tanked, which a lot of materials that we use in rehabs here are not being produced, which drives our costs up for a lot of that stuff. There's so much supply demand issues that we are really seeing, during the middle of COVID when you had windows on order for 12 weeks and that kind of stuff.
I had that. Well, so much of their GDP almost all their GDP growth was around building. That was the part where, and when that fell apart, that took the rest of the economy, their economy with them. And so it's like, because I remember I was talking to one of the guys at the meeting last year, one of our meetings, and I said, in about a year, things are going to be based on the stuff dealing with Evergrande, and it's going to impact us. And he said, no. And so I just saw something. He says, he sent out a notice, the gentleman, he was a real good guy. He sent out a notice that said, I think we're going to have to change all our tactics because he didn't say me exactly, but I was like, he may have had a clue on that. So, and you always have to anticipate stuff coming up, that type of thing. That whole market thing couldn't keep going on. The growth and everything was just astronomical. But what I'm noticing is the prices in like Colorado Springs are not coming down at all, but as the interest rates are still going up. So we've got a kind of a strange market here. And so we're so close to Denver and there's a lot of commuting back and forth, and people can't afford Denver. So they're coming down to the Springs, and it's only like 60 miles. So it's not too bad.
And I'm sure Colorado in general is seeing a lot of people moving to Colorado based off of politics, a lot of people leaving California and coming to Colorado, which is still, and that's very similar to what we have down here in Florida, where we're getting a lot of influx of people moving or migrating from other states into our state. And then that is even because really based off of the people that are coming in, you probably should be seeing prices start to drop, but the new people coming in are what's keeping it propped up, even with these other issues. And until the amount of houses equals the amount of people that need a house, you're going to see that in our market. We've started to see, and a lot of other markets around the country, moderate decline directly attributed to interest rates. But some markets are seeing huge declines. If you go to the Bay Area and that kind of stuff, where people are moving away from, and it was overinflated, and now interest rates are high, you're seeing that. But where they're leaving, our markets are being propped up a little bit from the influx of people. And I think that's why understanding your market and the local market knowledge is super, super important.
It is really critical.
Knowing what to think. But overall, I'm still super, super positive on the real estate market. I don't think that we're going to see a huge crash like we did in 2008. And if you have a different opinion, I'd love to hear what you have to say on that.
I don't, I think there's going to be it is hard to say. I'm not seeing a huge crash. I'm pretty surprised that the housing prices are holding up. That's kind of shocking with me because I've looked at a bunch of the stuff that I'm affiliated with, and I'm not seeing a huge decline in that. I'm just seeing they're slowing down. There's longer days on market and things of that nature. We were like 30 days hanging on the market, and then now we've doubled that in the last year. So and I think that's going to be the crux of things. And I'm going to jump back a little bit there to what you were saying about having a different tools and tool chest. The idea is you're not so much, you're kind of what an old term was, a transaction engineer. You learn all these different techniques for helping people out of their situation. Really, the goal my goal was always just to help people, and you can make some money at the same time. And that's you go in with a positive attitude towards helping people, and because they're usually desperate. The pre-foreclosure people, they call me and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna lose my house," and I said, "Well, yeah, you probably are gonna lose your house. So let's make the best of it, and let's not wreck your credit. Let's get you out of this situation and stuff." And that's really my approach for all of it is I'm helping people. I'm out of their situation, helping them calm down and get a better grasp on their life and moving forward and stuff. So, and it sounds like you're along that same page too. So, and I know that's kind of an aside, but I think that builds and everything. I don't have a crystal ball in terms of knowing what's going to happen, but I just try to anticipate things. I see the rise in interest rates. So I see that in the near term, we're going to have to change, the fix and flips and things like that are going to be a little bit more, they're going to be de-emphasized, and you're still going to have to help people solve problems. So the more techniques you learn and you learn from professionals, I try to work with lawyers. That's kind of a scary thing, but most of the people that I've learned from are lawyers, and their thing is the same as mine. We're here to help people. We just want to make sure that they get the best deal they can. I had this one situation, very, very unfortunate. This woman had sent me, she was in pre-foreclosure or something, and she sent me this note, said, yeah, come take a look. And so I went there, and she was a hoarder. She was like 87 years old and hoarding. She's a wonderful person. But you went into her, she had a condo, and you went in there, and she had a little path to her chair, and then a little path to the bathroom, and a little path to the kitchen. And but she wanted the money she needed the money to get into assisted living. And this other person really just took advantage of her. And I felt very, very bad. And so, if you're doing stuff like that, I tell people in the investment groups, don't work with this person because they did this to this poor woman. I mean, I could have made maybe $5,000 or $10,000, and that's plenty. I don't really, I want to do what's best for the person out there. And I'm sure that's the way you feel too, is we're all trying to do the best, want to make a little money. We're not trying to make a killing. And the good thing about that, when you keep that attitude, is the lawyers tend to not come after you. Because when you do bad things and you get the attention of a DA or something like that, I had a friend who he was carrying the notes or something back in the day. He had 60 properties. And then around the subprime meltdown, he lost all 60 of them, and the DA started to come after him because he was acting like a lender, a mortgage broker, and they frowned on that. And be nice to people, treat them fairly, just the way you want to be treated. The golden rule is actually a very good rule.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. That's the way we try to operate. And as a matter of fact, one of the policies in our business is we always want to leave the seller in a better situation than when we found them, whether we buy their house or not. So even if we don't buy their house or somebody else comes in and has an offer for them that beats ours, we're giving them all the information, all the resources, all the vendors that we can. And also I'll make an assessment like, hey, you probably should list this on the market instead of selling it to an investor, because you're going to end up in a better situation based on your problem. And we just try to give that information. And, sometimes we get referrals from those people to other people. And I think it'll all come back to us in the end.
It's kind of like karma.
It is definitely like karma.
The instant karma cafe, you're served up just what you dished out. I always like that one.
That's exactly right. Okay. Well, Brian, we mentioned your book, but if you could give us just a brief rundown, and then maybe tell people where they can find the book and where they can contact you on social media if they wanted to learn more about you or the things that you're doing in the community.
Sure. I wrote this book basically for beginners who know nothing about real estate. And I just go down I broke it up into a couple of different groupings and categories and stuff. And there's the idea of starting out with no money. What will you do? It's like bird dogging. You start bird dogging, which is going out or driving for dollars, driving around neighborhoods and connecting investors with potential properties. And then I work up from there as you start with no money. If you have some money, you can actually start buying houses. If you have credit, you can actually get loans and things of that nature. And I try to take it through the whole progress. I take it through the notion of, do you want to have hands off where you don't get involved, which is again like bird dogging or driving for dollars, or do you want to get heavily into being a landlord, and do you want to do a multifamily type of thing where you're really the landlord? And I've kind of settled in the middle myself in terms of just doing single family homes, because you're hands-on, but you're not, there. You don't have to change every light bulb. Yep. The book is oriented towards just introducing a lot of those topics and ideas for people to get a handle on, so that when they go to meetings, when they talk, listen to podcasts like yours and everything, they have a step up in terms of understanding the language of things that people are using in the industry and other investors are. And so it's like, even I always wanted to call a primer or a primer, and I didn't do that because I didn't know how comfortable people would be with that term. But anyway, I have a website called Real Estate Success, the number 4 and the letter U. So it's Real Estate Success 4, the number 4 and the letter U.com. And then my book is available, link to my book. And really what I wanted to do was start off with having a monthly meetings and talk through each one of these different chapters, but then COVID hit. So this book is really the textbook for a course that I actually have on Udemy. And you can see on Udemy, on my website, it has a link to the Udemy course, and it's about an hour and a half too long. And it's really, the book is the textbook for the course. And so the cool thing about, or cool or uncool thing about Udemy is you can list it at a certain price, and they slash prices all the time. They go, this is $99. I just picked up a course on Udemy for $99. I got it for $12. So I'm like, they do the same thing for you. Get these like, so, but it's like I said, I try to make a course that people can, you can get it very inexpensively if that's what you want to do. Or you can read the book. I've been told the book I write in a very conversational tone. And so it's just should be able to sit down and read it in about an hour or 2 hours tops. And I've been told I need to get an audio book, but I haven't done that yet. And I probably will do that. But it's all on my website, and that's the best place to go. And if you want to contact me, send me an email, just say Brian at realestatesuccessforyou.com. And that's the best way to send me a direct email.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you so much, Brian. We'll talk to you soon.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Jam. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more information, check out our website, therealestatejam.com, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Real Estate Jam. If you have any questions, feel free to drop us an email at therealestatejam@gmail.com. See you next episode.